Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Morrowind. My name's Camel, and in this video I'm going to be showing you all of the Easter eggs that can be found in Morrowind's vanilla version. And for the first Easter egg, we need to head to the bandit hideout, Adanumuran, which can be found slightly to the southeast of Balmora. Once in here, we need to find the bandit Marilla Saram, who is carrying an item of quite large interest. But we need to kill her and her friend to have a look. And once she's been killed on her body, we can find the fat Lute. There are lutes all throughout Morrowind, but there are only 3 fat lutes, this being one of which. Now you may not think there's anything too special about a fat lute, but this is a reference to the common MMORPG phrase that is used to describe very good loot, as in PHAT, fat, loot, LOOT, meaning you have gained a very good item that has dropped. And the phrase for that, fat loot, has been changed slightly to fit into Morrowind in a lore-friendly manner, with of course this item, the fat loot. And for the next Easter egg, we have the Dagoth home Decorators. Now this can be found in just about any 6th house base, but in this instance I'm going to be going to Kogoruhn, which can be found to the northeast of Margan. Now in 6th house bases, we will very commonly find very strange poltergeist kind of patterns that have been made out of furniture, with bits of furniture stacked on top of each other, weird symbols written all around them, as if there's some kind of meaning behind it. Finding this 1 or 2 times is a little bit weird, but it gets very suspicious when you find this in just about every single House Dagoth base. We can find an explanation though, if we sneak up behind an Ash Slave, specifically an Ash Slave, and click to activate. Instead of going into combat, we will actually begin a conversation. And as you can see here, the Ash Slave says, the chairs, the tables, all confused. We hear the words and must speak them. We take them and arrange them, but still they will not be quiet. If we leave the conversation and go back to another one, different dialogue will come up. Everything is wrong, this is not straight, this is too high, this is in my way, we must put them right. So this lets us know that these people are a little bit funny in the head and that the furniture is speaking to them, and they almost get this OCD compulsion to put all the furniture in these weird patterns and stacks. Very strange indeed. And for the next Easter egg, we have the Dagoth Toast. And to find this, we will need to specifically come to the ancient Dwemer Ruin, now turned 6th House Citadel, Endusal, Kagrenac's study, which can be found inside Red Mountain to the northeast of Aruhn. And in the final chamber, we will find Dagoth Endus, who will attack you. However, if you run around in circles and stay out of combat with him for a couple of seconds, when you run up to him, his name will pop up. What this means is that you can start dialogue with him. So you have to catch him off guard in that split second that his name pops up, click on him, and then a conversation will begin, which does get quite interesting. I greet you, Camel or Nerevar. Whoever you are, I am Dagoth Endus, brother of Dagoth and lord of Citadel Endus. Would you like a little ancient Dagoth brandy? Dagoth brandy, it is a rare nectar beyond compare, distilled ages before your ancestors' ancestors. And a fitting toast to our challenge. Would you like to sample it? Then I drink to your health, bottoms up. And then if you click Dagoth brandy again, he will say, whenever you're ready then, you're the challenger and I am your host. So honor demands that you deliver the first blow. So this is really weird because unless you run up to him and spoke to him accidentally, you would never know this existed. And he actually wants to have a toast with you before fighting you and demands that you deliver the first blow. Well, he demands that for about 2 seconds until you exit dialogue and he starts attacking you. And then of course, naturally, you just kill him. Well, that's the endus of him. And next up we have the 3 ashes. Inside Falas' ancestral tomb, we can find an urn labeled D. Bryant. Inside this urn, we can find the ashes of D. Bryant. Inside the Ravel ancestral tomb, we can find an urn labeled G. Lyngas, inside of which we can find the ashes of G. Lyngas. And inside the the Samarys Ancestral tomb, we can find an urn labeled Lord Brinne or Lord Bryant, inside of which we can find the ashes of Lord Brinne or Lord Bryant. These 3 ashes are all actually dedicated to former regulars at the Elder Scrolls forums, all of whom passed away during the production of Morrowind. So the developers put their ashes into the game to honor their memory. And next up we have the Merchant Mudcrab, who can be found just to the east of Ruin. And on this tiny island we will find a Mudcrab, but if we click on the Mudcrab, it will activate a dialogue sequence. And you can talk about how he's a mudcrab and he doesn't know what's happening, he slurs a lot, he's probably drunk. But the coolest feature about this mudcrab is that you can barter with it. He or she is actually a vendor, and in the vanilla version of Morrowind is the vendor or seller with the highest seller gold, and that being 10,000. Also, the Merchant Mudcrab is one of 2 vendors that buy items at full cost. If you sell the Merchant Mudcrab a weapon that has a value of 853 gold, he will buy that weapon off you for 853 gold. A very useful feature, annoyingly out of the way, but a very useful mudcrab to come to frequently to sell your very valuable items to. And for the next Easter egg, we have the spawn point of huge creatures, which can be found just to the west of Tel Vos, or to the north of Nchuleft. And here, there is a single spawn point in the Gracelands, which spawns creatures at, I do believe, double the normal size. As you can see, this Lute is, obviously bigger than my character is, when of course they are normally smaller than shoulder height. And here we will see a scamp who are normally much shorter than humans are, and here this scamp is towering above us. And finally, the only other creature I could get to spawn was this rat, which as you can see, is no normal size for a rat. It must be eradicated. And for the next Easter egg, we have the Imperial Library, which can be found in Tel Vos, which is of course just to the west of Vos. And here we will find an Imperial fortress that has now been turned into a Telvanni city. Inside Tel Vos, we will find a Dwemer museum where we can find all things Dwemer. And downstairs, we will find the Imperial Museum where we can find all things Imperial. All of their weapons, books on the Empire, things like that, armor sets. But interestingly, on the wall here, we will find this note. Welcome to the Imperial Museum and Library. Please feel free to peruse the exhibits at your leisure, but please do take care around the prisoner. He has been in a terrible mood since we cut down his rations after the escape attempt. Master Aruhn. Okay, what prisoner is this? Well, one of the exhibits in the Imperial Library is an Imperial Guard. The Telvanni really don't beat around the bush. If they want to exhibit something, they will capture a human that is part of that faction and put them in a cell to exhibit them to the world. So of course, they must be killed. Just don't Telvanni anyone. For this next one, in the Azura's coast on this small island, which can be found to the west of Tel Aruhn, we will find 2 people standing around a dead body. Excellent, pretty standard Saturday practice. And as we can see here, this dead body is named Arlowe. And on Arlowe's body, we can find a weapon called the BanHammer. Now this is a reference to the Something Awful forums, where the site's creator, Richard Lotax Kayanka, uses the BanHammer to ban trolls on the forums. And on the forums, Richard Lotax is sometimes referred to Arlowe, which is a homonym of this character's name here, Arlowe. So we can find the dead body of Arlowe with his legendary troll banning weapon, the BanHammer. And for this next Easter egg, we need to head to Caldera, which can be found to the north of Balmora. Once safely inside the city gates of Caldera, we need to head to Ghorak Manor right here. Once inside, we need to head up to the middle floor. On this floor, we will find a scamp, but not a hostile scamp. This scamp is called Creeper. And Creeper, just like the Mudcrab Merchant, is the vendor with the second highest amount of gold in the vanilla version of Morrowind. With a whopping 5,000 gold, Creeper is also the second vendor that will buy items at full cost. If you continue to speak to Creeper, he also has some very interesting dialogues to say. In Oblivion, we will find out that Creeper is in fact Barbas from Skyrim, Clavicus Vile's little minion, but you'll need to watch the Oblivion's Easter eggs video to find out more on that. For this next Easter egg, I am on an ancient shipwreck which can be found to the southeast of Dagon Fell. Now there is a book on this shipwreck. This book can be found in various locations, but I just happen to be on this shipwreck. And underneath this table here, we can find the Capn's Guide to the Fishy Stick. And if we attempt to read this book, it says, this book is supposedly the definitive reference to fishy sticks throughout Tamriel, but the pages are so smeared with fishy stick sauce, it is impossible to read any of them. The Fishy Sticks is an interesting reference to a tradition found on the Bethesda official forums, giving Fishy Sticks to new members, which was started by Captain Elrad. This tradition has been continued on the Nexus forums, where a senior member bestows a Fishy Stick upon new members. At least this was the case around Morrowind's release in 2002. This next Easter egg is incredibly difficult to find, and I would suggest you only experience it through this video. So I am out in the middle of the ocean to the northeast of Dagon Fell. So in this specific spot, if we dive down under the sea, we will find a bunch of clams and some seaweed. However, there is something else knocking around down here. This bottle right here, this glass bottle, unlike every other bottle in the game, if you click on it, it actually opens it up as a container. And inside the glass bottle, we will find a worn and weathered note. Now, I'm not going to read all of this because it is some really heavy poetry and it is quite long. Now, because this poem was found inside a bottle in the middle of the ocean, and the note contained within is very poetic and mysterious, it is most probably a reference to Edgar Allan Poe's story, MS Found in a Bottle. Edgar Allan Poe being a poet. I suppose it is up for question, but I think this is a pretty obvious reference to Edgar Allan Poe's story, MS Found in a Bottle. And for this next Easter egg, we need to head to the abandoned shack, which can be found on a very small island to the southwest of Narmok. In here, among various other things, we will find a lute that is leaning on a crate, a lute being the closest thing to a guitar. And of course, we will find the book on this crate, Noah's Picture Book of Wood. Interesting, and if we read the book, it says, wood is pretty, wood is nice, if one looks good, I'll make it twice. And then upon reaching the last page of the book, the words boat ack are seen scrawled about the margin in a vandalistic manner. This is a reference to Kurt Cobain, who apparently in his teen years enraged a neighbor by vandalizing a boat with these same words. Kurt Cobain wrote boat ack all over his neighbor's boat. And of course, don't forget the lute that was leaning on the crate, the lute of course being the closest thing to a guitar in the world of Morrowind. So there's a nice little nod there to Kurt Cobain. For this next Easter egg, we need to head to Jobash's rare books, which can be found in the foreign quarter of Vivek. Once inside the shop, we will find large amounts of books and rare books, which is to be expected from a rare book shop. However, on top of this bookcase here to our left, on the top, we can find a plant called Charles the Plant. What this is a reference to, I actually don't know, but it is the only plant with a unique name, or with any name for that matter. Interestingly, if we click to activate Charles the Plant, it will open the inventory, and Charles the Plant is actually carrying a unique alchemical ingredient called Meteor Slime, which as you can see has all positive effects. So what Charles the Plant is a reference to, or what this Meteor Slime is a reference to, I truly can't say, but I think you will agree that it is quite strange indeed. For the next Easter egg, we need to head to the Lizard's Head, which can be found in the Tilvani quarter of Vivek. Now, during Morrowind's development, one of the programmers, Steve Meister, formerly known as Mr. Smiley Face Dude, but currently known as Steve Meister, has an Argonian character named Scourge. During the course of Scourge's career as a test character, he got into some trouble with the law and eventually was killed. After seeing the Lizard's Head bar in Vivek, Mr. Meister decided that Scourge needed to be enshrined there. And if we go into this back room here, we can find, of course, the head of Scourge inside the previously mentioned bar, the Lizard's Head. So there's a nice little nod there, pretty weird. It's the only mounted head in Morrowind, I do believe. Animal, creature, or humanoid, it's the only mounted head. And you can actually pick it up, add it to your inventory, and move it around, put it in your house, whatever you want to do. But it is a nice little nod, something that Scourge won't be doing ever again, to one of Morrowind's test characters. Next, we need to head to Ghorak Plantation, which can be found just to the north of Vivik's foreign quarter. Inside here, we can find 2 orcs standing next to a locked door. So of course, our instinct is to kill both of them. And on the body of Gackenfeld, we will find something very interesting. We will find a muffin. Now, for those that didn't play Morrowind, there are no muffins in the game, except of course for this one muffin. This muffin has the same properties as bread, the same weight, the same value, the same effect, and it also shares the same skin and the same inventory picture as bread, but it has the unique name of muffin. Like I said, it is the only muffin in the game. What purpose it serves or why it's here, who knows? Maybe someone just likes muffins. Interestingly though, downstairs we can find an almost Breaking Bad setup where they are cooking moon sugar and turning it into skooma. So this plantation is basically a drug plantation. So drugs and a muffin, who knows? This muffin here might be one of those funny muffins, although it doesn't show any special effects. And making his first appearance ever in the Elder Scrolls, we have... I'll give you one guess who this is. Before we get there, he can be found on an island to the southeast of Dagonfell. And of course, it is Maik the Liar, everyone's favorite Khajiit. In my opinion, in Morrowind, Maik says the most interesting things, and some of my favorites here at the bottom you can see multiplayer. Maik does not know this word. You wish others to help you in your quest? Coward. If you must, search for the Argonian I'm Lute, or perhaps the big head Nord, Rolf the Uber. They will certainly wish to join you. So in Morrowind, Maik was a kind of way for the developers to speak to the player in-game. And of course, they're calling people who want help via multiplayer cowards, and then telling them to search for these strange characters, the Argonian I'm Lute, and the big Nord, Rolf the Uber. Another interesting one is weresharks. I have only met one, but he was afraid of the water. And the talking mud crab merchant, Maik has heard of this. They've got all the money, mud crabs taking over everything. This last option here though, the Shrine of Boethia, we're going to come back to that one at an Easter egg later on in the video. Next up, we have the Worm God's Friends. One of Morrowind's developers, Gary Noonan, otherwise known as Worm God, added a trio of characters to represent himself, his girlfriend at the time, and his father, who died during the development of Morrowind. Gary Worm God Noonan and his girlfriend can be found in Ald Daedroth under the names of GT and Kar Alba. GT being Noonan and Kar Alba being his girlfriend. Now I don't know if this is some kind of reference to them always fighting, because here they are together fighting, although they are fighting me instead of themselves. But there's Gary Noonan and his girlfriend in game. And the third character that represents Noonan's late father can be found in Senem Ancestral Tomb. And in here we will find a rather plush shrine and the corpse of Pop G. And Pop G of course is the representation of Gary Noonan's father. There was a rumor that Pop G was an active member of the Elder Scrolls community who died during Morrowind's development, just like the 3 ashes we saw earlier in the video, but Gary Noonan put those rumors to rest and confirmed that Pop G was in fact there to represent his late father. And unlike the other 3, instead of ashes, on his body we can find the bone of Pop G. It's pretty interesting, but I mean, if you really think about it, compared to just about every single one of us, that's probably the coolest way to honor your dead father. But Gary Wormgod Noonan's tricks did not end there. Inside every single Dwemer ruin on the pipes, we will find the same script running across the pipes. There are 7 letters that just repeat and repeat and repeat. And if you translate these Dwemer runes, they actually translate to Worm God, who of course Gary Noonan, his online tag, is Worm God. So he's literally just put his name throughout every single Dwemer ruin in Morrowind. And for this next Easter egg, all you need to do is head outside Seydanine towards the north. And here, in these lovely little marshland swamps, we will be greeted with a howling scream. And we will see a man fall from the sky and land on a book and die. This man's name is Tariel, or Tahil. Tahil, which is a reference placed into the game by the developer Mark Nelson, and this is referencing the North Carolina basketball team called the Tar Heels. And if we read Tahil's diary, we will find out that he has recently created some scrolls that let him fly. And here they are in his inventory, these scrolls of Icarian flight. And the name of these scrolls, Icarian flight, is a reference to Icarus. And as you can see, these scrolls fortify your acrobatics by 1000 points for 7 seconds. Now the trick here is that with a acrobatics fortified by 1000 points, when you jump, you're in the air for more than 7 seconds. So you can jump quite high, but landing is as normal. So as you can see here, we are in Satanine, and we're going to see if we can jump to Balmora. So as you can see, it's quite a jump. We're so high in the sky, we can't even see the ground. But soon enough, the ground will come rushing back into view, and it is Balmora. And as we can see on the map, we have reached Balmora in one jump. Now, normally you would die on landing, but luckily I was wearing my Nikes. So be warned with these scrolls of Icarian flight. And for this next Easter egg, we need to head to the 6th house base of Sharapli, which can be found just to the northeast of the Ghost Gate, right against the Ghost Fence. Inside here, on one of the lower levels, we will find these 2 giant Daedric braziers burning. And if we walk through the stone archway, we will find this weird looking thing. And as we can see, it's called the Pool of Forgetfulness. If you're on Xbox, it will say click A to activate, meaning that it was probably meant to have some kind of activation. If you ask me, this was never complete. I mean, just judging by that water fountain effect, it's truly awful, even by Morrowind standards. Why is it here or what it was meant for, I truly don't know. Perhaps the developers just forgot about it. Interestingly though, no, I forgot what I was saying. For this next Easter egg, we need to head to the ancient Dwemer city of Nchuleft, which can be found to the southwest of Dagon Fell. Once inside, you will find a bunch of orcs. Kill them, of course, because they're orcs. And on this table, we will find a book called the Egg of Time. Now, this is a unique book, but when we have a look at it on this first page, we will find a Vitruvian dwarf. The Vitruvian man, of course, was drawn by Leonardo da Vinci, and here the Dwemer have taken influence from Leonardo da Vinci's work and made a Vitruvian dwarf in this book, The Egg of Time. Next up, we have a bunch of Pokemon references. Inside the 6th house base of Ilunaby, we can find a chamber door called Marowak's Spine, of course, named after the Pokemon Marowak. Inside the Dwemer city of Arkanthand, we can find an area called Weeping Bell Hall. Of course, this is named after the Pokemon Weeping Bell. And then we need to head to the Ashalaku Astral Burial. And inside the burial caverns, we will find the Kakuna Burial. This is, of course, named after the Pokemon Kakuna. Now this next one is a little bit hard to get to. We are on a tiny island to the southwest of Ebonheart and Vivek. On this tiny island, we need to go into the water, and there we will find this cavern door underwater to the Mudan Grotto. After about 20 minutes of swimming through incredibly hard to see underwater caverns, we will stumble across this Dwemer ruin, Mudan, the lost Dwemer checkpoint. Once in here, we need to find the ladder and the worn Dwemer vault door to Mudan Right Tower. And in here, we will find a skeleton. And if we curse over this skeleton, we can see it is the corpse of Pikachu. What was that name? Pikachu. It's Pikachu! There must have been no poker centers nearby. Interestingly, there is a bottle next to Pikachu, and coming out of the bottle is something called poison. Now, just like Meteor Slime that we found on Charles the Plant, poison is a unique alchemical ingredient only found here. And as we can see, it has all bad effects. And next to Pikachu's body, we can find Pikachu's last words. And I'm just going to read the end. If one shall happen across my note, congratulations on making it thus far. And do not drink the rest of the bottles here. It tastes like guar but it's 10 times deadlier. And then it's signed Pikachu. So there's a really weird reference. Apart from the name, I don't see any connection to Pokemon. But there we go. We have found the body of Pikachu. For this next Easter egg, we need to head to Omalen Ancestral Tomb, which can be found to the north of Kogoruhn. Inside this ancestral tomb in the final chamber, we will find this very interesting sight. A skeleton that is pinned down by a pile of rocks, and it just says a corpse of an adventurer. And as you can see, the adventurer was running away with a ruby when the collapse happened. A dying man's last words. Let's have a read. I'm only going to read the last paragraph because it is quite a long note, but I do not go down alone though. With my crippled body in this heap of earth, I am accompanied by my trusty leather, my steel, and most of all, my token hat. Unable to reach them under the mass, I know they are untouchable and safe. I will not die alone. Farewell, you guessed it, Indy. So, as is made quite apparent by the last paragraph and of course the signing off of Indy, this is of course a reference to Indiana Jones, who was running away with some treasure and was trapped under these boulders here. In the rest of the note there are references to his dog Indy, his dad, his students, and his lifetime of adventure and finding treasures. So there is a very nice nod towards Indiana Jones with his corpse of an adventurer, with the ruby, with the man's last words, and of course being pinned under the rocks. It's a little send-off to Indiana Jones. Now we're on to the last Easter egg. Now strap yourselves in and pay attention because this is ridiculous. So earlier when I said we're going to come back to Maik the Liar, here we are. We're coming back to Maik the Liar. And if we click the option Shrine of Boethia, you seek the shrine that is no longer there. An interesting concept. Look to the seas to the west. There lies what was once this shrine. Take a deep breath and begin your search. So now we have a quest to go and find the Shrine of Boethia that is apparently under the water now. So once we find the shrine and fight everything in the fucking ocean except for Poseidon, we can take a deep breath of air and dive down to the Shrine of Boethia that of course is now underwater. After about 40 minutes of the longest speech ever, your journal will get updated. He will ask you to find someone to rebuild his shrine. To do this, we need to head back to Caldera. Once in Caldera, we need to head back to Ghorak Manor, where the orcs live. There's Creeper, and we need to go to the top floor, where we will find Ghorak, who is an orc sculptor, and he says to make the new shrine for Boethia, he will need 2,000 septims and a book on the Shrine of Boethia. Where better to get a rare book than Jobasha's rare books in Vivec? So straight back to Vivec and into Jobasha's rare books. Once we ask Jobasha about the statue book, he says, Jobasha has just what you're looking for. There's a book called Boethia's Glory. If Jobasha still has it in stock, it is yours for a reasonable price. 7 minutes later, when we finally find it in his inventory, we can buy Boethia's Glory. Then we head back to Caldera to give the book back to Ghorak. So we give him the book and the 2,000 gold, and he says he's going to build it at Kartag Point. So now we head to Kartag Point, and we have to wait 21 days, and now the shrine is built. The shrine to Boethia has been complete. We speak to Ghorak again. He says the statue is complete. So now we speak to the Shrine of Boethia, and he will reward us with the ancient artifact of Goldbrand. Here it is, Goldbrand. Goldbrand is ours. So the next logical step is obviously to become a vampire. Now it's not quite as simple as it is in Oblivion and Skyrim. You need to go and hang out with vampires, and there it is. It only took about an hour. You have contracted porphyric hemophilia, which is the vampiric disease. Then we need to wait 72 hours before we fully become a vampire. We will get this message, which means we are now a vampire. Now in Morrowind, when you're a vampire, there are only a select few characters in the game that will still speak to you. So we need to head to the Mages Guild in Vivec and talk to Cyrilonwi, and she will ask you to have someone killed. And note, you can only do this if you're a vampire. Yes, she will ask you to go to Aruhn, and specifically to the Aldskar Inn, and kill someone called Sheshev, and retrieve his key. And don't forget, we are now a vampire, so no one will speak to us, so we have to run to Aruhn from Vivec. 30 minutes later, when we finally rock up in Aruhn, we need to head to the Aldskar Inn. On the bottom floor, in the Aldskar Inn, we will find Sheshev. What we need to do? Kill Sheshev, and get Sheshev's key off his body. Now just take note of the name of this key, Sheshev's key. And once we get it, we need to head back to Vivec, and of course we're a vampire, so we have to run back. So 30 minutes later, when you get back to Vivec, we need to go back into the Mages Guild in Vivec's foreign quarters. Now, if you do want to do this, I suggest you save this now, because if anything goes wrong, you will stab yourself in the eyes. Now, before speaking to Cyrilonwi again, we need to make sure of two things. One, we are carrying exactly 11,171 gold, exactly. Not one higher, not one less. Exactly 11171 gold. And we need to make sure that we are also carrying the weapon that we got from Boethia, Gold Brand. We need to be carrying both of those things. Now, once we speak to Cyrilonwi and you select someone killed, your journal has been updated, Shishevsky has been removed from your inventory, Gold Brand has been removed from your inventory, Elton Brand has been added to your inventory. Go to hell, Carolina. Okay, so what just happened there? Okay, remember the developer Mark Nelson that made the Tar Heels reference with Tariel? Well, this monstrosity of an Easter egg belongs to him as well. So, first up, the guy we had to kill, Shishev, we had to get his key. Collectively, we had to get Shishev's key. Shishevsky is a reference to the longtime coach of the Duke Blue Devils basketball team, Mike Krzyzewski. So there's a reference to the Blue Devils. Gold Brand was removed, but it was replaced with a weapon called Elton Brand. The name Elton Brand, the NBA basketball player Elton Brand, was a member of Mark Nelson's favorite team in college, the Duke Blue Devils. Elton Brand, as well as being a former Duke basketball player, was the #1 pick in the 1999 NBA draft. So the sword that Gold Brand is replaced with, Elton Brand, is literally named after this NBA player. And the last message, of course, go to hell, Carolina, is a pretty obvious reference that the Duke Blue Devils, their arch rivals, were the North Carolina Tar Heels. Therefore, the message, go to hell, Carolina. So one question among many that I'm sure you have, why did we need to be carrying 11,171 gold exactly? This is quite interesting. The number 11171 has two very meaningful references to this Easter egg. The Easter egg was created by Mark Nelson, who is a Duke basketball fan, and the Duke basketball team, at this time, their greatest victory was a 111-71 victory. So the amount of gold that you needed to be carrying was a reference to their best win. And very interestingly, Mark Nelson, the guy that created the Easter egg, his date of birth is the 1st of November 1971. 11-1-71. Exactly the same number. So that's why you needed to be carrying exactly 11,171 gold. And just so you know, here is the stats for Gold Brand, and here is the stats for Elton Brand. And as you can see, Elton Brand is obviously superior. Whew. So there you have it. There are the Easter eggs for Morrowind. I hope you survived that last one. So I do hope that you thoroughly enjoyed this video, the Easter eggs that can be found in the vanilla version of Morrowind. So yes, that does mean that a video for Morrowind's DLC Easter eggs will come out. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to click any of the links on screen, which will take you to the appropriate Easter eggs videos that are already up, or you can click the Easter egg playlist button, which will take you to the vast library of Easter egg videos that has already been made on this channel. So at your leisure, please click on any of the links on screen. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like. Don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts and theories behind these Easter eggs. Don't forget to share this video amongst your family and friends and any Duke basketball fans. And as always, if you did enjoy this video and you would like to see videos similar to this one, please subscribe. It helps me know that people are interested in these kind of videos, and in the long run will result in more of these kind of videos. The links to social media, specifically Facebook and Twitter, are in the description, so if it would please you, feel free to like and follow. And like I said before, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it greatly, and I do hope that you learnt something new or just enjoyed this video. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next video. See you there.
See you in hell.